Sinister and spine-chilling, 17 terrifying true stories revealed from haunted Reddit threads. Lisa scrolled through her phone, a shiver running down her spine as the articles flashed in front of her. Sinister and spine-chilling, 17 terrifying true stories revealed from haunted Reddit threads. Each post described nightmares woven into reality, tales of things that went bump in the night, shadows that stalked the living, and the faint echoes of laughter from children who never returned home. A chill crawled down her neck as she clutched her phone tighter, the late hour amplifying the shadows in her modest living room. Exhausted from another night nursing shift, she glanced towards her daughter, Emma, slumped over on the couch, lost in a world of sleep. The quiet surrounding them should have felt comforting, yet the silence dripped with unease. In their suburban neighborhood, meticulously manicured lawns and cheerful greetings masked an unsettling current. Children played in the sunlight, but as dusk fell, their laughter twisted into something malicious, echoing from the deserted park just a block away. It was a neighborhood steeped in whispered legends, places where kids had vanished, their giggles haunted the air at night. As Lisa dug deeper into the stories, she stumbled upon one that chilled her to the bone. It was about Mr. Thompson, their neighbor, described as a pleasant old man who transformed after dark, lurking in shadows and inviting danger. Unsettled, Lisa read about a recent disappearance of a local girl just blocks away, leaving the community rattled but, disturbingly, nothing more done than a fleeting mention at the local coffee shop. Lisa's heart raced as strange occurrences began to weave into their life, lights flickering mere seconds after Emma stumbled into sleepwalking episodes, eyes rolled back, whispering to the dark in a language Lisa couldn't comprehend. Her maternal instincts kicked in hard, screaming at her that something was dreadfully wrong. Anxieties gnawed at her, layered with unease as she began to receive anonymous warnings on her phone, vague notes advising her to stay away from Mr. Thompson. Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. That night, Lisa returned home after another 12-hour shift, fatigue turned into adrenaline as she pushed open the door. Everything felt wrong, the living room was a disaster, as though an unseen force had run wild. A shiver swept through her body. She had ignored the warnings too long. Panic seized her gut. With clenched fists, she decided to confront Mr. Thompson. The path to his house felt loaded with foreboding, the shadows shifting like they held their breath. But just as she reached his door, she turned and froze. At the edge of the street, Emma stood watching her, her little face illuminated by the flickering streetlight, eyes wide and unblinking, like a doll left behind in a forgotten attic. A warning bell clanged inside Lisa's mind. The eerie laughter of children drifted through the air, twisting nostalgia into something dark. As Lisa approached her daughter, dread saturated the air, making each breath heavy. Emma blinked slowly, and in that beat, Lisa felt everything shift, as if the veil between them had thinned dangerously. A scream broke the night, a sound from the park that shattered the stillness like glass. What had she let in? What shadows had been creeping too close? As the realization gripped her, everything she held dear hung in a delicate balance, teetering on the edge of a cliff, daring her to leap into the unknown. Would she be able to pull Emma back from the darkness that loomed so perfectly disguised? The answer felt poised, lurking, waiting in the darkened corners of the night. Lisa's breath hitched as the scream echoed through the night, distorted and raw. It sounded like a child, but it was drenched in a haunting resonance that made her skin crawl. She looked urgently at Emma, who stood frozen, the light above casting eerie shadows on her pale face. Emma! Come here. Now! Lisa urged, feeling her heart pound painfully against her ribcage. Yet Emma didn't move. She simply stared, unblinking, as if waiting for something just beyond Lisa's reach. Emma! The urgency in Lisa's voice shattered the chill of the night. Emma's head tilted slightly, as if someone had whispered a secret to her that only she could hear. It was unsettling to witness such stillness in her daughter, the innocence now tainted by an unholy clamor lurking around them. The scream rang out again, closer this time, a cacophony that clawed at her throat. With fear bubbling up inside her, she rushed towards her daughter, praying that whatever darkness hung over them wouldn't latch onto Emma. But in that frantic moment, the laughter returned, clearer and more menacing. It crawled under her skin, an invitation cloaked in malice, echoing from the direction of the park. Suddenly, Lisa's phone buzzed violently in her pocket, pulling her from her panic. She fished it out, her hands trembling like leaves in a storm. The screen flickered with an incoming message from an unknown number: "Get Emma inside. Now." No sender, no context, just the chilling urgency. "Emma. We're going inside. Now," she commanded, her voice sharper than she intended. To her relief, her daughter snapped out of it and scampered to her side, the gloss in her eyes fading as she blinked away the grip of whatever had held her. As they turned to head back inside, the shadows lengthened, curling around them like fingers reaching for their next victim. Lisa's instincts screamed, the primal part of her demanding she run, but they were only steps from safety. The house loomed ahead, a small fortress against the unknown. With a racing heart, she gripped Emma's hand tightly, ushering her inside. Once through the door, Lisa locked it, the sound reverberating in the stillness. She leaned against the cool wood, taking a moment to breathe, her chest heaving. The house had never felt so confining, so filled with a weight she couldn't understand. The flickering lights overhead danced erratically, the shadows stretching like they were alive, mocking her fears. "Mommy?" Emma's voice trembled, breaking the thick atmosphere. "What's wrong?" She knelt beside her daughter, brushing a strand of hair from her forehead. "Nothing, sweet pea. Just tired. Let us get you to bed." But the normalcy felt like an illusion. Lisa hesitated, reality pressuring her to stay vigilant. As she walked Emma to her room, she couldn't shake the feeling of being watched, as though unseen eyes lingered in the corners. They settled into the dim light of Emma's room. The silly stickers on the walls suddenly felt ominous, their cheerful nature an eerie juxtaposition to the suffocating dread enveloping them. Just as she tucked Emma in, her phone buzzed again. The message was simple, yet cryptic: "You should have listened." A cold wave washed over Lisa. She glanced at the window. Outside, the park lay shrouded in darkness, the laughter now palpable, echoing in her mind, close enough to touch. Something sinister had brushed against her life, and she was terrified of what would come next. "I love you, sweetie," she whispered, forcing a smile, hoping to shield Emma from the shadows closing in. "I love you too, Mommy," Emma replied sleepily, her little eyelids drooping. As Lisa tiptoed out of the room, the hair on the back of her neck stood on end. She could feel it, the movement, the presence just beyond her sight. Was it Mr. Thompson? Was he truly the nightmare she suspected? Or was there something far worse hiding in the dark? Before she could find the answers, a loud crash rang out from the kitchen, leaving her breathless. What now? The entire world had turned against her, and she was left in the throes of uncertainty. With dread settling heavily in her stomach, she approached the kitchen, one step at a time. Somewhere in the back of her mind, she knew that this was just the beginning and dark secrets were waiting to be uncovered. What was lurking in the shadows? Lisa stood at the threshold of the kitchen, her heart thundering like a drum in the silence that followed the crash. What could it have been? The storm outside raged on, pounding against the windows like a desperate plea for help. Shadows darted behind her as if they were alive, mocking her courage. "Emma," she whispered, her voice barely carrying across the darkened hallway. The mere thought of her daughter alone in the room just a few steps away sent her nerves fraying. She fought down the urge to bolt back to her, but the instinct to confront whatever awaited her was stronger. With a trembling hand, she reached for the kitchen light switch. The bulb flickered to life, casting harsh beams over the disarray upon the floor. The chairs were overturned, and the table was littered with the ingredients for a meal she had abandoned in her rush to protect Emma. But nothing had fallen from the shelves to cause the chaos, the air thickened with tension. As her eyes swept the kitchen, she caught a glimpse of movement, something darting in the corner, just beyond the reach of the light. A cold sweat formed on her brow. She moved further in, her breath catching each time a fresh wave of wind hammered against the house. "Who is there?" she called, forcing steadiness into her voice that she didn't feel. The kitchen was empty, or so it seemed. A tall shadow loomed just outside the window but melted away when she turned her head to look directly at it. Suddenly, the laughter returned, piercing the silence, echoing through the room as if it were inside her very skull. It was haunting, mocking. Was it Emma's laughter? No, it was twisted, an invitation twisted into a threat. "Get away from my daughter." The fierce protectiveness took over, bolstering her courage and firing adrenaline through her veins. She spun around, scanning the darkened corners, but nothing surfaced. Then, she spotted a small note, crumpled and tucked under the fridge. With a hesitant hand, she reached down, her heart still racing as she knew there were eyes upon her, unseen, relentless. A shiver crept down her spine as she unfolded the paper, the scrawl barely decipherable. "Stay in the light, or he'll get you." Her breath caught in her throat. Stay in the light. Was it a warning? The laughter faded, replaced by a low, continuous hum that resonated from everywhere and nowhere all at once. It coiled around her, closing in like a snake poised to strike. "Emma!" she screamed, hurtling towards the hallway, back to her daughter. What if something was slipping through the cracks of her safety? What if the darkness was coveting what was hers? The reality of her now fragile sanctuary pierced her heart with fear, but as she dashed towards Emma's room, she stumbled over something in the dim light, a small, plush toy, which had rolled out from behind the sofa. The one Emma had left there this morning. A creeping dread unfurled in her chest, the realization tightening like a noose. Emma would never leave a toy behind. That as she pressed her ear against the door to Emma's room, a voice split the air inside. A faint, childlike tone laced with something dark, something wrong. "Come play with me." Lisa's blood ran cold. "No. Emma!" she cried, her hands fumbling for the doorknob, adrenaline surging. But before she could open it, the bedroom door creaked slowly and opened on its own, revealing a pitch-black void beyond. "Mommy!" Emma's voice echoed, more distorted than before, a chilling mimicry of her daughter's innocence. Panic engulfed Lisa. She knew deep down that whatever it was already entangling Emma in its web. What else lurked in the darkness? What had replaced her daughter's laughter? She knew she had to act fast, but the door swung wider, revealing shadows that moved of their own accord, breathing life into her most desperate fears. Could she save Emma before it was too late? In that chaotic moment, one thing became clear: the darkness cherished no one and would claim everything she held dear. Lisa's heart pounded in her chest as she stepped into the void. The air felt heavy, thick with despair. A part of her wanted to scream, to turn and run, but Emma's voice, a fragile echo of her child, pulled her in, gripped her firmly like iron chains. "Emma!" she called again, pushing forward. The darkness seemed to swirl around her, alive, hungry. With each step deeper into the room, her vision adjusted, revealing indistinct outlines. The bed frame, the dresser, the shadows, everything felt wrong, twisted, like a cruel mockery of her daughter's sanctuary. "Mommy!" the voice sang again, laced with syrupy sweetness that sent chills along Lisa's spine. There was a dissonance, a cracking undertone that resonated in her mind like a sinister lullaby. "Where are you?" Lisa strained her ears, listening, but finding only a suffocating silence that gnawed at her. Then she saw it, a figure perched at the foot of the bed. The outline was small, vulnerable. Emma! Lisa's heart leaped with hope, but as she rushed closer, a cold dread tightened around her heart. The childlike figure turned, and the dim light flickered just enough to reveal a face that twisted familiarity into horror. "Emma?" Lisa whispered, trembling. The child's eyes were wide but held an icy glint, a bottomless pit where love once resided. Mommy, you came. The voice ricocheted off the walls, ringing hollow. Get away from her. A new sound interrupted, a deep rumble from beneath the bed, as something large shifted. The darkness grew thicker, suffocating, like a weight pressing down on her chest. There was no time to think, only the instinct to protect. Lisa charged forward, arms outstretched, but as she reached for her daughter, shadows erupted, writhing around her, grasping at her limbs as if trying to hold her back. Come play with me. Emma's voice grew distant, like a fading radio signal, swallowed by the darkness that continued to stretch beyond sight. No! Lisa yelled, shaking herself free, the intensity of desperation igniting a flicker of courage. She fought against the grip of the dark, straining forward, reaching for the light she knew was still flickering outside the room. The shadows tightened, making it hard to breathe. Images flashed before her, Emma giggling, dancing in the sun, the warmth of their laughter filling the spaces between them. The memories ignited a fire within her, fueling her determination. Emma, please. Come to me. Lisa screamed, the power of a mother's fear ripping through her. For a split second, she saw Emma's form shimmer, the shadows pulling away just enough to glimpse her daughter's true face. Panic and affection twisted in Lisa's chest, as she never felt such a stark contrast of love against the dark, but then, the figure chuckled, a deep, rumbling sound that echoed off the walls, twisting Lisa's mind. It wasn't Emma. It was something else masquerading in her daughter's shape, feeding off her light, wrapping itself in the memory of innocence. Mommy, help me, the voice begged, deeper now, darker, a taunt that drew Lisa closer. No. In a moment of clarity, she took a step back, ready to escape. But the shadows seemed to grow hungry at her hesitance, lunging forward, shifting and swirling. Stay in the light. That cryptic warning pulsed in her mind, reminding her of the note left behind. With a sudden movement, she darted back. She gathered her strength, bracing toward the door where the faint glimmer of brighter light lingered just out of reach. Emma, I will find you. She cried, her voice steady against the chaos. The air thickened, twisting into a cacophony of laughter and screams as she sprinted for the light, the darkness clawing at her heels. But the laughter changed. It morphed into something more dreadful, a mocking chant echoing behind her. Come play with us. Lisa stumbled, feeling the weight of dread pushing her down, and as she burst through the door, she knew something had shifted. The grip of the darkness had given way, but it wasn't defeated. It was still there, lurking, poised for the next opportunity. Why had it let her escape? What awaited her? Next, a shiver raced down her spine. She felt she had merely entered a new game. The faint light at the edge of the doorway beckoned with an otherworldly glow, a siren call of safety. But as Lisa staggered into the hallway, her breath coming in ragged gasps, the shadows lurked just beyond the threshold, whispering secrets she dared not listen to. The air outside the room felt almost tranquil, but that false peace failed to comfort her. She knew the darkness was still there, biding its time. The memory of Emma's twisted face haunted her thoughts, echoing through her mind like a scratchy record. She clamped her hands over her ears, trying to block out the mocking laughter that lingered, refusing to fade. Emma! She shouted, her voice cracking. Where are you? No response came. Just silence. The oppressive stillness was a weight on her heart, squeezing tighter with each passing second. She had escaped the room, but she felt as if she'd left part of herself behind, her daughter trapped somewhere within the shadows. Fumbling down the corridor, she rushed for the stairs. Each step felt heavy, laden with an invisible burden. The house loomed larger, its walls shifting and curling like a creature awakening from a long slumber. The thought hit her, what if the house itself was alive? What if whatever was in there was feeding off her fear, drawing strength as she attempted to escape? An icy finger traced down her spine. She needed to leave, to flee this nightmare. Just as she reached the stairs, the lights flickered overhead, bathing the corridor in a sickly yellow hue. Panic swelled within her chest. She felt the shadows creeping closer, eager to snatch her back into the depths. Then, unexpected sounds drifted through the stillness. A door creaked open, echoing through the hall. Lisa froze, adrenaline flooding her veins. Was there someone else here? Someone who could help her? Hello? She called hesitantly, her voice shaky. Silence answered her. The oppressive presence of the house pulsed around her, suffocating. The silence stretched, thick as fog, until a low, sorrowful sound emerged from one of the rooms. It resembled a child, weeping softly. Emma. She turned on her heel, propelled by instinct, chasing after the sound. The door to the nearest room stood ajar, a sliver of light spilling out like a warning. She pushed it open slowly, her heart racing. Inside, the room was eerily still, untouched by the chaos. Her breath caught as she saw a figure standing in the corner, shrouded in shadow. Please, help me, it whispered, a fragile voice she knew too well. Emma. Lisa rushed forward, desperate to grasp her child but stopped short, her heart sinking. The figure turned, but this time it bore a grotesque grin, teeth jagged and sharp, eyes glinting with a hungry darkness. Not Emma. The shadows coiled around it, binding it like a puppet. That's not your daughter, it crooned, the voice twisting and warping. She's mine now. The room began to warp, the walls stretching, the floor trembling. Lisa stepped back, heart racing, panic threatening to consume her. No. I want to let you take her. But as she turned to flee, the doorway vanished, swallowed by darkness, leaving her in a twisted void. Playtime is just beginning. The mocking voice surrounded her, vibrating in her bones. Trapped and consumed by fear, Lisa screamed, but nothing escaped her lips. She felt the shadows closing in, pulling her deeper. Would she lose herself completely in the darkness, along with her daughter? What other horrors awaited where her child once played? Desperation clawed at her, and she braced herself as the shadows loomed larger, squeezing her heart as she fought to remain in control. Emma! She cried once more, but would it echo through the nightmare or silence her for good? The darkness tightened, squeezing the air from Lisa's lungs as panic surged like a tidal wave. The twisted voice reverberated around her, mocking, hungry. She could feel it seeping into her skin, penetrating her thoughts like a poison. Playtime. She whispered, fear lacing each word. It wasn't just a game to them, it was a hunt. And she was the prey. Lisa stumbled backwards, her foot brushing against something cold and wet on the floor, a puddle of darkness. It affected her senses, warping her perception. She could still faintly hear the cries for help, layered beneath the laughter echoing from the shadows. Whoever was behind that voice was toying with her, playing a cruel game that could shatter her mind. With a sudden lurch of bravery, driven by sheer desperation, she focused past the swirling shadows. I'll find you, Emma. She screamed back, her voice tinged with defiance. In that moment of determination, the air seemed to vibrate. The shadows shuddered, momentarily receding as if surprised by her fierce resolve. She took her chance, darting away, feeling the whispers grow distant, but not silenced. Where to go? Where was safety in this macabre labyrinth? Every corridor looked the same, walls covered in blackness, pulsating as if they were alive, watching her every move. Lisa ran, her feet pounding against the warped floor. The house groaned in protest, the very structure seeming to want her to stop, to succumb to the creeping horror. But she couldn't. Not while there was a chance to save Emma. As she rounded a corner, she found herself in a room filled with glassy-eyed dolls, perched on dusty shelves and staring blankly toward her. A shiver ran down her spine. The way they watched felt unnaturally sentient, as if they were conduits between this world and the void. One doll, dressed in a tattered white dress, beckoned to her, its glassy eyes gleaming in the flickering light. Emma! She gasped, a rush of frantic hope. But as she took a step forward, the dolls began to whisper, a cacophony of low, unsettling sounds that made her skin crawl. Their voices twisted and churned, forming words that pulsed around her. Play with us, join us, stay forever. She snagged one of the dolls from its shelf, feeling the cold porcelain against her skin. Its face had a hint of familiarity, a vague shape that triggered an echo of memory. Heart racing, Lisa held it tightly, hoping for some form of connection. "Take me to Emma." She begged. No sooner had she spoken than the shelves began to rumble, the dolls shuddering violently. A crack opened where the wall met the floor, a thin slice of pure darkness threatening to swallow her whole. The chilling laughter returned, louder, coating her thoughts in dread. "Leaving so soon?" the voice taunted. She felt the shadows rushing back to her, hungry and relentless. Clutching the doll, Lisa turned to flee back to the corridor, but the opening had vanished. The walls shifted, sealing her in the room. Desperation clawed at her throat. "Emma! Please, help me!" she cried, but all that responded was echoing silence, taunting her, reminding her of what was to come. Lisa pressed herself against the wall, trembling, trying to catch her breath, her mind racing. If she couldn't escape this room, how would she ever find her daughter? Then, from somewhere deep in the darkness, she heard a soft murmuring sound mixed with the pitter-patter of little feet. Was it Emma? "Mommy," the voice was faint, filled with longing and dread. Lisa's heart skipped. "I'm coming, Emma," she shouted, mustering every ounce of strength. But as she pushed against the wall, panic surged anew. Would the house let her out? Or was it truly playing her for a fool? The shadows thickened, closing in, drawing tighter around her. "Mommy," the voice echoed again, but now it was distant, almost fading. As her heart pounded, she frantically searched for an exit, but would she find her daughter in time, or would the game end with her own despair? The darkness laughed around her, hungry for what it craved most, her submission. The whispers surged, a unified cacophony that enveloped Lisa, drowning out her thoughts. The dolls closed in, their glassy eyes watching, mocking, as if they were the puppeteers pulling the strings of her impending fate. She pressed the doll against her chest, its unfamiliar weight somehow grounding her amid the madness. "Help me, please," she urged the doll, but it remained silent, its porcelain face still and unyielding. A knot of frustration and fear twisted in her gut. Could she rely on something so lifeless? Doubt crept in, slithering around her mind like a serpent. "Leave her be. You can't take her." Her voice rang out, filled with raw desperation. The laughter that followed was rich and sinister, vibrating through the walls, stinging her ears. "She's not yours," she screamed, fighting against the encroaching shadows. The air thickened, squeezing her throat. Each breath felt like a battle, a struggle against an invisible force pushing against her chest. Then came the soft patter of footsteps again, startlingly close. "Mommy," the voice echoed sweetly, resonating with innocence. Panic clawed at her, but she forced herself to remain focused. It sounded so real, so near, yet shadowed by the deceptive gloom. "Emma! Where are you?" The house seemed to tremble at her words, the walls vibrating, and for a moment, she felt an unsettling stillness. The shadows writhed in anger, swirling faster, suffocating her hope. "Stay with us, join us," the dolls chimed in, their voices now a haunting lullaby that sent chills through her bones. "No!" she shouted, heart pounding like a war drum. Each syllable was a lifeline, an act of rebellion against the darkness that wanted to pull her under. "I'll find her. I won't give in." The room shuddered, the floor beneath her feet cracking as the walls pulsed. The doll in her hands felt warm, the porcelain shifting, almost alive in her grip. Clutching it tightly, she felt an inexplicable connection surge through them, igniting a spark of determination. "Show me!" Lisa cried, desperation fueling her words. Chaos erupted, the doll's whispers morphing into a discordant howl that shook her bones. The shelves rattled, threatening to collapse, while shadows danced wildly, illuminating the dark recesses of the room. And then it happened, an ear-splitting crack echoed through the air. The wall to her right buckled, fissures spiderwebbing across the surface like frozen lightning. Lisa took a shaky step towards it, fueled by instinct. Was there a way out? Would she finally be led to Emma? As she reached the breach, the darkness surged forward, a wave of chilling wind rushing past her face, almost pleading. "Leave before it's too late," a voice broke through the maddening chaos, soft yet forceful. A warning? Or a sick trick? Lisa peered into the crack. Beyond it was a blinding light, pure and inviting, cutting through the suffocating shadows. But at the same time, tendrils of dark smoke screamed from the edges, trying to snatch her away, wanting to fill her with despair. With no time to think, she plunged forward, heart racing. The light engulfed her, a violent burst of warmth flooding her senses, but just as quickly, darkness followed. What had she stepped into? Was it freedom or a deeper trap? As she fought against the pull of despair, the darkness shrieked, a chilling amalgamation of voices, taunting her with words, "You can't escape." Playtime is just beginning. As her vision spun, Lisa grasped the doll tighter, feeling the pressure of fate closing in. Could she truly break free? Or would she remain another lost soul in this twisted game? And then, in the distance, a familiar voice broke through the chaos, fragile yet certain. "Mommy, I'm waiting." A wave of dread washed over her as she understood the choice was hers to make. Would she find Emma before the house swallowed her whole? The moment Lisa passed through the crack, her surroundings transformed. The blinding light morphed into an eerie glow, bathing the room in an unsettling luminescence. A powerful force pulled at her, urging her deeper into this strange limbo. She looked around, desperate to grasp where she had ended up. The once familiar dolls had vanished, replaced by walls that seemed to ripple and breathe, like a living entity. "Where am I?" she whispered, the echoes of her voice fading away. The air felt thick and sticky, enclosing her like a shroud. Panic loomed at the edges of her thoughts, urging her to flee. Suddenly, the ground trembled beneath her feet. The warm glow flickered, casting elongated shadows that twisted around her. Shapes began to materialize from the darkness, figures cloaked in shadow, their faces obscured, but their eyes glimmered with a predatory hunger. A low, guttural sound reverberated, vibrating through her bones. "Stay, remain with us," they whispered, each voice dripping with malice. Fear clawed at her insides, icy fingers gripping her heart. These were not the innocent dolls she had encountered, these were something far more sinister. "Leave me alone," she screamed, backing away, her pulse racing. But the shadows advanced, inching closer, circling her like wolves gathering for the kill. The room contorted, walls closing in, and the light dimmed, matching her growing despair. Then, she spotted something in the corner, a flicker of movement. It was a door, old and decrepit, half hidden by the rolling shadows creeping toward her. A desperate surge of hope ignited within her. Was this a way out? With the darkness spilling closer, she ran towards it, the echo of her footsteps drowned by the whispers clamoring for her attention. "Emma! I'm coming!" she shouted, hoping against hope that she could still save her daughter. But as she reached for the door, the shadows lunged, their screeching laughter echoing in her ears. The door creaked open reluctantly, revealing a narrow passageway. Lisa squeezed through just as the shadows grasped for her, their cold tendrils brushing against her back. She stumbled into the passage and fell to her knees, scrambling to catch her breath. The door slammed shut behind her with a deafening thud, silencing the cacophony, but the shadows lingered, gnawing at the edges of her sanity. Gripping the doll tightly, she recognized the warmth emanating from it, a comforting reminder amid the chaos. Heart racing, she pressed further down the passage, the walls pulsating around her, throbbing with an ominous heartbeat. "Emma!" she cried again, pushing forward. Each step resonated with a predatory echo, as if the house were alive and pulsating, waiting to devour her whole. Suddenly, she stopped dead in her tracks. In the dim light ahead, she spotted a figure huddled against the wall. A tangle of dark hair framed a small face, twisted in fear. Could it be Emma? Hope surged, but as she approached, the figure turned towards her, and Lisa's heart dropped. The face was not Emma's. It was a doll, one of the very dolls that had tormented her. Wide, glassy eyes stared back, the same mocking expression etched into its porcelain features. "No, no. This can't be happening." Lisa turned to run, but the walls began to close in, the narrow passage becoming a funnel of shadows. The laughter resumed, louder and more cruel than before. She felt their presence everywhere, suffocating her. Playtime? She muttered, realizing there was no way to outrun them. Just as despair settled in, she spotted another glimmer in the darkness, a faint light flickering on the brink of her vision, dancing just out of reach. What lay beyond that light? Was it another door? Or perhaps the very heart of this nightmare? The choice beckoned, and she was torn between the chilling echoes of the shadows and the glimmer of hope that flickered invitingly ahead. "Don't let them get you," a whisper teased, brushing against her ear. It wouldn't be long before they closed the gap. With a renewed sense of urgency, she launched herself toward the light, praying it would lead her to Emma or perhaps be her ultimate undoing. What awaited her at the threshold? The closer Lisa got to the flickering light, the more the shadows coiled around her. She could feel their icy breath, whispering taunts that scraped at her sanity. Every instinct screamed to turn back, but something deep inside her urged her forward. She couldn't leave Emma behind. As she neared the source of the light, it intensified, bathing the narrow space in a warm, golden hue that felt inviting yet strangely sinister. Instead of reassuring her, it raised new alarms. What kind of illusion lurked ahead? Was it another trap? With a trembling hand, she reached out toward the shimmering glow, heart pounding in her ears. The light flickered again, and then abruptly extinguished, plunging her into darkness. She stumbled, falling onto cold, hard ground and gasping for air, terror washing over her in waves. "Emma!" The word clawed its way out of her throat, desperate and broken. She scrambled to her feet, remembering the doll still clutched tightly under her arm, a tenuous lifeline connecting her to her daughter. It throbbed with warmth, almost pulsating in rhythm with her racing heart. "Please help me," she whispered, veering left and right, disoriented. The passageway felt narrow, crowded with darkness and uncertainty. Her only company was the low growl of the shadows, like distant thunder gathering to strike, but then, without warning, the faint light flickered back to life ahead. This time it remained steady. Something stirred within her, a flicker of hope amidst the despair. Lisa hesitated only a moment longer before sprinting toward it, the shadows howling behind her, furious at her defiance. The light revealed a larger room, its walls lined with mirrors. Confusion washed over her as she skidded to a halt. It was an assortment of reflections, each depicting a different version of her, yet none mirrored her true self. In one, she appeared as a sleep-deprived mother, panic etched on her face. In another, she was a doll, a porcelain figure with the same mocking eyes she had seen before. Each reflection leered back at her. "Don't look at them." A voice shrieked from the shadows behind her. "They steal your soul." Lisa spun around, searching for the source. But all she found were the shifting shadows, undulating like a dark sea. The voice had a familiar tone, cutting through the fog of terror, a young girl, not unlike Emma. The desperation twisted in her gut. "What do I do?" she shouted into the void. "Please, I need to find my daughter." "Follow the reflection that isn't yours." The voice echoed again, softer now but urgent. "Or they'll take you with them." Panic surged through her as she peered deeper into the mirrors. Each reflection taunted her, beckoning her to step closer, to lose herself in the web of shadows. Fear pooled in her chest, nearly suffocating her. "Don't look back." She heard the voice warn again. With her heart racing, she stepped forward, trying to discern which reflection to trust. Suddenly, behind her, a deafening roar erupted. The shadows surged forward, eager to devour her whole. The panic that had been simmering boiled over, propelling her through the maze of mirrors, which reflection to trust. Her heart raced as she reached for one, a fleeting image of her own eyes, defiant and determined. But just as her fingers brushed the cool glass, the mirrors cracked, sending shards flying as the shadows laughed louder. What would happen when the last mirror shattered? Would it free her or pull her deeper into this hell? As Lisa dove through the splintering glass, she could only hope she wasn't too late to save herself or Emma. What awaited her on the other side of the shattered mirror? The world around Lisa erupted into brilliant chaos, fragments of glass exploding outward like a shower of stars. She felt the sharp edges cut into her, but the pain was nothing compared to what loomed behind her. The shadows roared, a collective beast craving her fear. Determination surged through her as she surged forward into the shimmering void. A sense of weightlessness enveloped her, pulling her through a kaleidoscope of colors. For a heartbeat, everything went silent, no whispers, no cruel laughter, just a void of anticipation. Then, suddenly, she plummeted, landing hard on solid ground. The jarring impact jolted her senses, and she glanced around to find herself in a vast, dimly lit space. She was inside a massive room lined with shadows that danced just beyond her sight, shifting and swirling like smoke. At the center stood a flickering lantern, casting elongated shadows that clawed at the edges of the light. It felt alive, each pulse resonating with her heartbeat, urging her forward. Emma! Her call echoed, a desperate plea that bounced off the walls and faded into the oppressive atmosphere of the chamber. She glanced toward the lantern, its soft glow offering a flicker of hope amidst the darkness. Before she could decide, the faint whimpering floated through the air. Her heart clenched as she recognized that sound, the unmistakable cry of her daughter. "Mommy!" the voice called, fragile and distant, encircled by the menacing ripples of darkness. "Emma!" Lisa shouted, rushing toward the lantern, each step igniting a flicker of adrenaline. The shadows twisted, angry at her approach, coiling as if to strike. She ducked and dodged, the air thick with foreboding, each breath turning colder as the shadows lunged closer. Then, she glimpsed a figure huddled against the far wall. Heart pounding, she charged toward it, hoping and praying it was her daughter. As she neared, the golden light illuminated the form, and the shadows flared. Lisa's stomach dropped as she recognized the face. It was Emma, arms wrapped around her knees, but her daughter's eyes, those familiar, warm eyes, were clouded over, distant. The innocence that had once radiated from her was now overshadowed, marred by the darkness clinging too tightly. "Sweetie, it's me!" Lisa cried, reaching for her. Emma's face turned up, but a shiver of recognition turned into something darker as shadows cascaded around her. "Mommy, help!" Emma's voice trembled, but when Lisa reached out, an invisible barrier pulsed between them, rejecting her hands. "Let her go!" Lisa screamed at the shifting forms encircling her child. They slithered, growing larger, twisting the scenery into grotesque shapes, heightening the tension in the air. "Come play with us," the shadows taunted, an insidious chorus echoing around the chamber, pulling at Lisa's resolve. "Stay in the light." The words burst forth in a surge of fierce determination. She turned back towards the lantern, realizing now that the shadows feared it, craved the light to consume. With newfound courage, she sprinted toward the flickering glow, calling out to Emma again. "Stay there. I'm coming." As the shadows lunged with ferocious speed, Lisa shielded her eyes with one arm, while clutching the doll with the other. "No. You can't have us!" she shouted, feeling the heat rise in her chest mixed with despair. But she couldn't waver now. As the light pulsed brighter, the shadows recoiled momentarily, disarrayed by her bravery. Sprinting with all her might, she reached the lantern just as darkness enveloped the room. In that perilous moment, Lisa grasped the lantern, holding it aloft. The golden light expanded, washing through the chamber like dawn breaking over a long, cold night. Shadows shrieked, retreating and swirling violently, while Emma's silhouette brightened, coming clearer into view. "Mommy!" Her daughter's face broke through, filled with renewed warmth and clarity. With a final surge of strength, Lisa lunged forward, stretching her arms to Emma. Eyes wide with fear and confusion, Emma clambered toward her mother. "Grab my hand." Emma reached out, and their fingers tangled, drawing warmth from each other that electrified the atmosphere. The shadows screeched in fury, trying to reclaim what they had lost, but as Lisa radiated strength, the darkness dissolved into wisps defeated by their love. together they unleashed a blinding flash of light that exploded through the chamber, rippling through the shadows like a wave, unraveling their hold. Lisa felt the tether of darkness snapping, the room spinning as the shadows dissipated, obliterated by the fierce bond they shared, by the clarity of their love. In a final burst, the world around them collapsed into echoes of laughter pure, innocent, and free. Suddenly, they were outside, the cool breeze washing over their faces, stars twinkling high above the trees. The night sky felt endless, serene. Lisa knelt beside Emma, holding her tightly, breathing in the sweet scent of her hair. "Mommy, I was scared," Emma whispered, her small body trembling slightly. "I know, baby. But I'm here. You're safe now." Tears streamed down Lisa's cheeks, each drop a release of the fear and darkness they had conquered together. Across the park, the moon shone brightly, and for the first time, the air felt crisp and inviting. The laughter of children wafted through the night, a promise of safety, a chance for new beginnings. Hand in hand, they stepped away from the shadows, leaving darkness behind as they walked home, sunlight warming their backs. They had survived the nightmare and emerged with the bond that could never be broken, a light that would guide them forward, no matter how treacherous the path ahead. As they crossed their threshold, Lisa knew one thing for certain: they had triumphed. Love would always push back against the dark. In that moment, she felt a weight lift from her heart, knowing her sweet Emma was finally home. You need to subscribe now and become part of this incredible journey. Smash the like button now to feed the algorithm and help us reach more hearts and minds. Flood the comments section with your thoughts, reactions, and theories about this wild ride. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this thrilling conclusion. Your support means everything.